Hello, Santa Fe. I'm anybody, and this is my guest, everybody. Welcome to the power of I've voted.
Hi. Hello, anybody.
You're everybody.
Everybody. Everybody. The power
I guess
of I
you
voted.
wonder what we're doing this show for. Our nation, our state, our city is showing divisive partisanship, tribalism. That's what today's America is about. You say my vote doesn't count. I can tell you it does. We cannot expect Washington to solve our problems.
Absolutely not.
Everything that's come out affects the entire country and the state of New Mexico. It includes you, your friends, state government, businesses, everything. Our country is fractured at this time. Let's take a look at some of the issues.
Sure.
I'm just going to give you questions.
You gonna put me on the hot seat?
No, I will be on the hot seat with you. Make America great again, or America has always been great. Those are the two things that we've got to think about. How do you feel?
I think that America has always been great. But I also think that America has always had problems. I think America has seen divisiveness before. Mm-hmm. I think that we've seen partisanship like this or similar to this before. Divided country on issues. I think we've seen that before. But I do think that America has always been great, although we have a very rugged history. And I think we've always struggled to be greater and to be better. So is it about making America great again? Or is it about making America better? And I want to say that it's about making America better. Because as people get better, as we get stronger, our country gets better. As we become more unified, more together, and we look at problems and issues and the things that are confronting us collectively and together, as opposed to being separated and divided, us against them will not get us anywhere. So I guess my answer to you is make America better.
Okay, you're right. We have had a lot of problems in this country. I remember several. I'm older than Cindy. I don't look it, of course.
Of course not. And you're not that much older than me.
I am quite
Although
a bit older.
we've worked together for a long time.
We worked together. We're very good friends. But I've noticed, I remember Vietnam. That was my era. There was a lot of tension in this country, a lot of dislike, hatred about the war. It didn't seem like any of the presidents, any of them, up until that time, had really been able to get that war stopped. And we caused a lot of problems nationally with that war. We got into it, France got out of it. De Gaulle was the smart one. But when the soldiers came back, there was a lot of hatred toward the military. Mm-hmm. Heard a lot of these fellows that came back to this day.
Right.
Oh, many of them are still suffering. So we have had some problems. I was around when the civil rights issues took place.
And they're still taking place. And I
still
think that's something
place.
that continues to be an arena where we as America can learn from our history, learn from our past, learn from each other, and become better, and definitely be better, get better.
You know, living in Santa Fe, we saw very little of problems in that area. I remember I was in high school at the time. I would watch these previews on television, black and white television, mm-hmm. and dogs out, German shepherds attacking black people in the South. I could not believe it. Signs up white people only, no coloreds. Mm-hmm. that surprised me, that shocked me at that time. But we managed to get through that era. Mm-hmm. We're having it come up again, and I don't like it.
And I don't know that we don't like it. And I think that we have to ask ourselves, we got through it, but we're still going through it. So, I don't know that we ever came to the end.
No.
We're still seeing that divisiveness in terms of we still want to call it, people don't want to say, is it about race? Well, a lot of times it is about race. Is it about economics? It's about economics. Is it about education? It's about education. It's about how do we continue to take care of all people in our country. And that's where we see those differences in the divisiveness. It's like, I want to protect what's mine, this is mine, only mine, and I'm not going to share it, or I'm not going to, make it bigger for all of us. And I think that we can, and we should, and we're moving for that. And the reason that we got through it and we continue is because we have what we're going to be talking about, and we're going to talk about is, our voices. And the vote. We vote people that have issues to help us, to bring people together, to mend this divide. But also we get involved. What do we need to do? How do we make the change that we want to see? How does our actions make a better difference?
It's our personal actions. I know people that don't read. Mm-hmm. Period. I know people that don't watch anything but one station. Mm-hmm. Won't even mention the station. Mm-hmm. I decided I was going to read everything I could get my hands on, magazines. Mm-hmm. I watch MSNBC, I watch CNN, I watch Fox, and I watch BBC, which has a totally different interpretation of what goes on in American politics. So that's the way you learn. Study the issues.
That's important. We were talking earlier, Carlene, about, the power of, I wrote it, The Power of Our Voice. And I was sharing with you what I had done not too long ago. And I'm on Facebook, and I, post every now and then. Sometimes I'll share a funny post that makes you really laugh, or somebody put out there that, is really about believing in humanity and the strength of people, working together. We see people coming together all the time. And I share those kinds of things on Facebook. But I wrote a post not too long ago, and it really talked about our voice and what we can do and getting involved. And I said, when we talk about politics, a lot of people say, well, I don't get involved in politics. I don't pay attention. It doesn't really matter. That's Washington. That's, they're all corrupt. They're all this. I don't really get involved. And my question to them is like, well, do you drive on a public road? Mm-hmm. Have you ever had to go to the hospital in the emergency room? Have you, do you eat in restaurants? Do you go to movies? Do you participate in your community in any way? If the answer to that is yes, well, then you are involved in politics, because politics is about governance, it's about community. And so that's what we are involved in politics. And so our voice matters. The people that we put to make decisions for us really do. It does matter. And so we have to execute our voice. The other point I wanted to make, in that post was about what do we give away? What are the things that we have that we're willing to give away? Well, I know countless people that give away their time, their treasure, their talents. The Bible tells us we tithe, we give constantly. But we're also, if we choose not to get involved in politics, if we choose not to vote, we're giving away our voice. And if we give away our voice, we're going to give it away to somebody who is more than willing to take it and more than happy to not let us or to have us execute our voice. So we have to get involved, and we have to, and every election cycle and even in between is when we need to get involved. And right now it's important to vote and exercise your voice.
Absolutely. I had somebody say the other day, they said, well, I don't think the government should be running our lives. I said, do you accept Medicare? Mm-hmm. Silence.
Well, we talk about health care as a huge issue.
Right.
We talk about Medicare. Health care is a huge political issue right now. The Obamacare, people want to repeal and replace, and they say that I don't want government running my health care. Well, in this country, insurance companies have always managed our health care. They have always told us, whatever insurance company we have, they've always told you where you can go for service, what doctor you can see, how much they're going to pay for that service, if you can get a prescription or not. I mean, I just the other day took my mother to her rheumatologist, and the doctor told me, goes, well, I'm just still the middleman. You know, what is it that you want? We'll see what the insurance companies will pay for. And so government running, the insurance company running, somebody else is running our healthcare. So we need to get involved and say who it is that is going to run. We're going to allow government through Medicare, then get involved. Let's reform. Let's change the things that we don't like. Insurance companies, it's private. Somebody's making a lot of money off of our insurance premiums.
That's right.
They're telling us that, you know, I can't go for healthcare until I'm really, really, really sick. Is that prevention or not? And Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act, I think, was there and designed. Sure, there are problems with it. It needs to be fixed. But it was designed about prevention. It was designed to allow people to get more involved in their own health care and make their own choices and not have the health insurance companies making those decisions.
And it's still there. The problem is still there.
Oh, it is.
Nobody's actually come up with a good solution for health care. Nobody wants to attack the cost. Nobody's found a solution to bring the cost down.
And I agree with you. That said, though, I think that there are a lot of organizations and a lot of people across this country, I mean thousands, people working on it, researching it, finding out why is it costing so much, what is the cost, and how can we bring that down, and how can we make it affordable for everyone. So that, and I really, again, think that was the premise for Obamacare. Did they get everything they wanted? Is it perfect? It's not perfect, and it does need to be fixed. There are a lot of things. But Medicare is the same way. But a lot of people use, when you're 65, you have to get into government insurance and health care for a good reason. And it does help you, and it can work.
Yes.
And there are, as I mentioned, I mean, to not lose that point, organizations that are continuing to research and how can we make it better. I mean, private philanthropy is working on it, nonprofit organizations, government watchdogs. I mean, there are people everywhere that are looking and talking about how can we make this better.
And we have to work together on it. And I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, period.
I agree. That's, again, we said it doesn't matter whether we're blue or red, lean blue, lean red, whatever. It's about the issues and understanding, and asking ourselves, what is important to you, and as you mentioned, doing your homework and getting the right information.
Now, another one that affects New Mexico. Some people say, we don't want to change the gun laws. Now, some of the gun laws have to be put in eventually. What's wrong with sensible gun legislation? They have met head to head. And there are some things we can do for sensible gun legislation. Cut out AK-47s. Who needs one of those?
Who needs an assault rifle, right?
I would never use an assault weapon. Do I have the right to have a handgun to protect myself at my house? You bet.
No. And I mean, when we talk about, the big issues, which we are talking about, I mean, you and I are having a conversation that people have over their coffee every hour of every day in every city across this country, and everyone has an opinion, and which is a good thing. We all have our opinions. We all feel how we feel about we should or we shouldn't have gun control or gun laws, or let's enforce what we have. Let's look at the issue from protection or just a matter of rights. The government can't tell me what to do, can't say how high, I am in control of my life. But we all know, there are speed limits on the highway for a reason. There are stop signs and traffic control for reasons.
And violate one of them and you're dead.
Exactly. and those were things that were put there that were studied and people came together. But it was because people came together and they were talking about it. And when we agreed to disagree, you have your opinion and I have my opinion. I'm not going to change your mind. You're not going to change my mind. But we're going to elect people. They're going to have a disagreement. And then it could come to the point where you vote. And when the vote is there, we live in a country where majority rules. And that's democracy. That's what we believe in. And that's when, if we give away our voice, we're giving away that vote to somebody who else is going to take it.
Okay, another thing that affects New Mexico, oil and gas and fracking and conservation for our beautiful land here in New Mexico. Now, I'm putting this directly in New Mexico.
Yeah, let's talk about New Mexico.
Okay, fracking, lots of water used, lots of money being made. Is it more important to do that or to have our precious land protected?
Right.
Chaco Canyon, northern New Mexico land, Oregon mountains. Do we want to frack into these beautiful pieces of land? We've got a lot of oil.
Well, and if you're asking me from how I feel, I mean, I worked for the New Mexico Environment Department for over 5 years. I chaired the New Mexico Water Quality Control Commission for a little over a year. I saw a lot of oil and gas companies come in front of the commission looking for less regulation, which in my opinion was a greater profit for them. They were looking for less regulation that allowed greater contamination in New Mexico that impacted all of us, impacted the entire state. And so I agree with you. I think that environmental protection is critically important. But it goes back again to, we have these arguments back and forth, and then to go back to this, that people need to ask themselves, what's important to you? What is important to you? And you talk about Chaco Canyon, we talk about the Oregon Mountains, the Hyde Park, all of our state parks, our national parks, our public lands. I mean, just the air that we breathe. And then you have to ask ourselves, are these things important to me and why? Do I fish? Do I hunt? You know, I want my guns, I want to go hunting, I want to fish, I want to breathe clean air, I want clean water, I want to have children and grandchildren, and I want to raise them here. So this environment, if we don't sustain the environment, we're not going to sustain our state, we're not going to sustain the country or the planet. And so we definitely have to have this environmental regulation, and we have to have them in check. Can we overstep? You can overstep, and government can overstep. But that's what checks and balances, and we have to, again, elect people that are going to make educated decisions, put people in with them that are going to make educated decisions, and look at the science, and look at what is it telling us, and then make those decisions. But it comes back to the power of I voted. Who are we going to vote for? Learn the issue. If that's important to you, what candidate is going to look at protecting the environment for you? What candidate, if business and making money and you're in oil and gas and this is more important to you, maybe that's, where you need to look at that too. But as a community as a whole, what's the most important thing as a community, as your family, and then use your voice and execute that vote.
And you can look it back into history. The Antiquities Act was started back in 1906. Every president in the United States has supported that. There's a good reason. And they were Republicans and Democrats.
Well, again, I mean, in terms of environmental protection, Carlene, it's extremely important, but it's about sustaining life and the quality of life that we know it. And again, when we talk about the power of I voted, it's, learning what is the Antiquities Act, who supported it, what does that mean, what legislation is being challenged in New Mexico right now, what regulations are being challenged in New Mexico right now. And granted, I know that not everybody is going to be able to read everything and go back and look at all the laws and all the regulations. And I can tell you, even at the Environment Department, I read many of them, but not all of them. And how can you? But you need to know that when you are voting and you have a governor or you have the leadership or you have legislators, that we hold them accountable. They're running to be held accountable by us. So they need to be informed.
We're the boss.
Absolutely.
We're the boss.
But we have to do our homework, and we have to hold them accountable. And I get sometimes, you have 2 jobs, you're too busy. I've worked 2 jobs before. We all know how that is. It's hard. It's really hard. So how do we balance? How do we have time? Then it goes, how do I get my information? Do I read the paper? Do I watch TV? Do I talk to my friends? Bottom line is we need to be able to find some time to get information that we trust.
Okay, another thing that's come up are human rights violations. How far does America go to protect people in other countries? If it doesn't happen in our country, why should we worry?
Well, if you're asking me, if you're asking me, I mean, I'll definitely tell you. I mean, we should worry because, in my humble opinion, it's the human race. It's, and we talk about race, we talk about humanity. It's the human race, and what would you do to the least of your brothers is
That's
what
right.
you do unto me. And we heard that. And, is it about religion? For me, I mean, it's about moral issues for me. And but am I going to take care of my own family? Absolutely. I'm going to take care of, my children, my grandchildren, my friends. I mean, the people that I can't. But I think there's enough for all of us. And we all need to work on it together. Is it just an open door, blank check? And, everybody said no. That's why we have politics. I mean, that's the politic, not necessarily politics of us and them, but the laws that are passed by both parties. I mean, we have committee hearings, we have legislative hearings all the time, and then they go to the vote. Then the governor has the power to vote, veto or not. I mean, he has or she has the power. Then it can go back to legislature. We have that way to look at those laws. So I'm not saying just open it up and it's just everybody for everybody for themselves, all for one. But it's orchestrated, it's organized, and it's governed. So yeah, how far do we go? We have to ask ourselves that question.
If you violate human rights and okay it in another country, it will happen eventually in our own country.
It does. It catches up to
karma. Okay.
We should have a law, karma law.
Global warming is a hoax. It's all caused by China.
Is that a question?
I'm just stating what's been said.
Again, my climate change is real. Climate change is man-made. We inhabit this planet, and we need to be good stewards of our environment completely. And we need to sometimes make tough choices.
That's right.
And again, when we are looking at voting, and again, we have to ask ourselves, I mean, if that's how we feel, if we feel climate change or global warming is a hoax invented by some guy in the basement or something somewhere, or by China, well, then you vote that way. But I think that, 99% of the global scientists are telling us something. Maybe we should listen to them.
If the world scientists,
yeah,
and you're right, it's up in the 90%.
We
better start listening.
They're telling us something for a reason. They do this for a living, right?
We talked about this healthcare program. One of the things that's been brought up in it are pre-existing conditions. Nobody really wants to touch that.
Right.
That's a touchy area. But think of the people that have pre-existing conditions that cannot afford health care.
Right.
Cannot even afford to go to a doctor.
Right.
Is this right?
No, I mean, again, we talk about affordable care,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I think when we talk about coming back to the vote, each one of us has to ask ourselves, how do I feel about that? Well, how do I feel about pre-existing conditions? Well, it's all fine and well until it's your pre-existing condition, and you're the one that's struggling to find health care, and you're the one that's struggling to find a doctor that will care for you, something that you can afford.
Or for your children.
Well, absolutely, for your children, for your family. So, pre-existing conditions, again, just goes to health care for all, in my opinion, as something that should be accessible and available and affordable. Prescription companies and prescription drugs. I mean, there are prescriptions out there for practically everything. Something that we know, and I count my blessings every day for doctors and for scientists and for researchers because they have, found things that's available. Is it accessible? That's another question. And that's what we need to ask ourselves, how can the government help us with healthcare becoming more affordable and more accessible, and who's the candidate and who's going to be voting in this situation to help that, especially for you. So it's all fine and well. It's like, I was in legislative hearings on healthcare before and heard people say, the government can't make me get health insurance. I don't need health insurance. I'm a healthy person. And you want to stand up and say, well, but we're all an accident away from a disability.
Yeah.
And if I'm sorry, but if we walk out the door and I'm hit by a car or by something, and I go into the hospital and I don't have health insurance, somebody else is paying for my health care.
That's right.
Because I'm in the hospital. The hospital is there for all of us, emergency rooms. Thank God for that we have Making America Strong. That's what makes America great, is our healthcare system, if it's accessible. But then somebody else is going to be paying for that. I'm willing to say, I'll pay my share. We should all pay, because I know I may need it, and I know that you may need it, and it's there for us.
Okay. Something that I've actually been involved in. The news media is the enemy of the people. Now, I worked with the news media my entire career, and they're not perfect, but my God, look what they did down in Florida over this hurricane. News media people probably saved a lot of lives because they're down there in the dirt. So think about this, people.
Right.
They're not perfect.
Right.
But the minute you start lying to the news media, you're going to get caught. I got in trouble many times because I refused to lie to the news media.
Well,
And you try to hide anything, or you try to make it look good, I can tell you there'll be somebody in the news media that'll be writing a book about you.
Right. Well, and I appreciate the work that because you said, that you did, and we've worked together 30 years ago, and, informing people about what's going on in the highways and
Yes.
highway construction and, the news about whatever, you name it, we are involved in what's going on in the country. Now, the whole issue of social media and new media outlets and having the internet accessible. I mean, my 2-year-old grandson can access the internet faster than my father, which is fine. I mean, because that's where he grew up with it, and he knew that. But my father can access it too, and he'll get on, and he does do that, and we taught him. But he also taught us, and our parents taught us, is that we have a brain. And we can discern, and we can do research. So, I mean, if there's something that looks fake news, find out what is the source, where did it come from, and you can learn that. But is the media the enemy of the people? No, they're giving us information, but we're the ones that are we have to discern, we have to use, and we have to use that information, research that information, and go forward with it.
I had a call from a friend of mine one time that gets onto social media all the time. They called me and they said, "Did you know that Michelle Obama had a penis?" And I said, "What?" But they believed it.
I believe it.
They believed it. I'm not going to believe anything like that. And I'll read Enquirer magazine, for crying out loud.
For entertainment.
Three-headed baby with 4 eyes or something.
Right. Well, and it's again about using our mind, and I've said this before, but I mean, we all have to. Everyone makes their own path.
Everybody.
We're all going to find our own way, and it does involve politics. It involves our community. It involves our friendships. It involves the people that we know. But it's about using our mind and learning. And for the people that we know that maybe don't have access to something, we have an obligation also to teach them and to show them. But do your research and find the facts. I mean, you're going to find something that sounds like fake news. Maybe it is fake news, but find out.
Find out. If you want to say news media is a hoax, or do you want a free press? Look back into history again, and you will notice this. There was Mr. Hitler, Mr. Mussolini, Mr. Stalin. I could go on and name dictators. They did not want a free press, every one of them. So think about that before you say that news media is enemy of the people. Tariffs. Is it better to put heavy tariffs on countries, or will these tariffs cause tariff wars, which went on in the 20s, causing us to go into a depression?
Again, and I think that you're raising questions and after question that each one of us, as informed, educated, voting citizens of this country, we need to ask ourselves. Because in some instances, perhaps tariffs are good, and we need to raise tariffs. And in some instances, they're not. But I think we have to, again, ask ourselves which ones and why, or why not, and become informed and educated about them, and look at the economics of it. But we also have to have trust in, and we vote people that are going to be in charge of making these decisions. And if they make decisions that we believe aren't fully researched or fully checked, well, then we won't vote for them next time.
Well, I have so many of them here.
You're making everybody think out there, Carlene, and that's the most important thing.
Well, we've got to start thinking.
We have to start thinking and asking ourselves these questions.
We've got to devise a workable immigration system. Right now, we have children down on New Mexico's border. They were taken away from their parents with a zero tolerance. We need to have an immigration policy. I will always say that. Nobody sat down and really tried to figure out one, or I haven't seen one. They come up with suggestions. One of the latest suggestions is what they call binary separation. Binary separation are people, guardians or custodians, that will go in and take these children over.
Well, I think you're asking going all the way back to the first question in terms of having a strong immigration system and process, but then asking ourselves, how did we get to where we are now, and what's going on where we are now? And then we think about government. I don't want government involved in my health care. I don't want government involved in my guns. I don't want government involved in things that are personal to me. But I'm okay to pay for the government being involved in separating families, housing children in makeshift houses and wherever that. That all is costing our country and all of us personally billions of dollars. And is that really the best use of those funds in the big picture, to when we have so many other issues facing us? So is that where we needed to be? Do we need it to be there now? Or should we look, like you said, need to address the immigration system upstream, further up?
Okay, another thing that's been very, a lot's been said about it, is Russian meddling in our elections. Now, the majority of the experts say it is happening. Europe says it's happening. England, Germany, it's all over the world, not just here in the United States. What do we do to handle this? We've got experts in this country.
Yeah, again, another great question. And again, one person, one answer. Anybody and everybody. Anybody has an answer. Everybody has an answer. We have our thoughts about it and stuff. But I think, again, we have to go back and we have experts, and we need to listen to what those experts are telling us. And the meddling is real. And what is that meddling, and where are they? But how are they meddling? What are they doing? They're putting information out on the internet in front of us that is not true. They're putting information out there that is fake news, that is things that are getting us to, riled up, dividing us. People are putting things, it's like divide and conquer. You've heard that before. It's like, so if I put enough information out there and I make all of them struggle and they all work against each other, I can come in and I can be the person that's going to save them from themselves. It's like, that's the meddling. That's what we need to watch out for. So then we need to say, let's get above that again and get the information and discern what's good information and bad information. And then we need to elect people and use our vote to get people out there that we know are going to be tough on that, to research, to find out what's going on and put an end to that.
And there are people out there that can do it.
And prosecute it if they have to. I mean, absolutely. It's against the law.
God, there's so much here in New Mexico. Opioids,
Sure.
drugs. We've got a serious drug problem in the state. Our money a lot of our money should be going to rehab. Unless you get these people rehabilitated, they're not going to get off of drugs.
So the opioid addiction, I've been doing my own research on some other personal work that I'm working on right now, and opioid. And definitely it's about rehab because we have people that are addicted. I don't think that many of us have to go too far, probably not even outside our own families, to know someone that has an addiction.
Right.
And we know how that person is struggling personally, how that has impacted the family, the parents, the grandparents, children. So yes, I mean, those kind of services and addiction and rehab. But I think there was some research, and there was a study out of Syracuse, New York, and one of the universities up there talking about, again, looking at research and looking upstream. What are the main causes of addiction? If it's not opiates, it could be something else. This is the drug of the time right now. But I mean, what is it? It's disconnection. It's social isolation, being isolated, not being educated, feeling helpless, people looking. So how do we get drugs? Sure, there's the pain addiction, and people become addicted because of pain. But there are other issues, other things going on. And again, when we look at opioid addiction or any type of addiction, alcohol addiction, any addiction, is what are the root causes of that? And so when we look in New Mexico, and we look at our own state, and we look at things that are going on here, again, I think we have to back up a little bit and say what's important to us, and what are the things that if we put money and attention toward are going to help fix this. Education? Absolutely. We have to educate children, high school, and keep them in high school. I mean, when we're at the bottom of every list on the country, we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing wrong?
We've come up one.
What have we done? Okay, yay. That's good. However, not good enough, right? Not good enough.
No.
Because we can do
We
better.
can do better.
In this state. And again, we go again about getting information, doing our research and our homework, and using our power that we have. We're more powerful than we think by electing people that we hold accountable to do those research and find out for us and come up with programs. And then we get involved too. Don't just let them say, I elected you and now you have to fix it or you break it. That's not going to happen either.
No, it won't happen. We have so many things that are going to affect our state. One of them is trapping animals. I know that's going to come up in the legislature. Is that right or wrong? For the person that's doing it, maybe they can get a few bucks off of it. For the overall amount of people, I don't know. Most of them are going to say no. So here's a problem. Protecting a woman's choice. You're a woman. I'm a woman. Do I have a right to do what I want to do with my body? You bet.
Yeah. I, myself, again, think that that's a very personal choices that we make with our health care, with our lives, with quality of life, with the things that happen. And these are hard choices that people have to make personally.
They're not easy
They're not
for
easy.
anybody.
They're not easy. So because it's that hard, do I have the right to make that choice for you?
No, you don't.
Nope.
And neither does anybody in
Right.
Washington.
And so it's kind of interesting because sometimes we say, well, I don't want government in my life, but it's okay for government to tell me what I can do with my body or not do with my body. do I want it or I don't want it? I don't know.
Another thing that's going to come up, right to die. You look at that from a moral, what your moral position, what your religious position is. Do I have a right to tell somebody if they're sick and dying and in pain that they shouldn't have assisted suicide? I don't have that right.
Yeah, and you know, I again feel the same way as you. Again, I think that quality of life is extraordinarily important, which is what we all aspire to, have a good quality of life in our states, in our country, and each of us are unique. We all have our own fights that we do, and we have health struggles, personal, whatever it might be. And again, I think a person has to make their own choice with their family, with their clergy, or with their, you know, however, or with not. I mean, however they make their own choice, that's up to them. But these are very, very interesting questions, very provocative questions, and I think that are worthy of public debate. And then people make decisions. And again, if the decision is something you don't believe in, then we have activists or people, and you continue to get involved.
Domestic violence is big in this state. Domestic violence toward wives and toward children.
Absolutely.
It's
violence, period.
Violence of any kind is wrong, and we have a problem with that. Most of it is drug-related, alcohol-related, testosterone-related.
I was going to say Super Bowl related, but
Super Bowl, yeah, there's more violence on Super Bowl.
We look at the statistics, you know, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, Carlene, it's interesting because, I mean, nobody has all the answers.
There are no.
I appreciate this conversation because it's, I'm hoping that it'll be thought-provoking for people watching and thinking about these questions. You know, we talk about domestic violence, and violence against any human being is wrong. And how do we manage that? How do we handle that? Is something that's critically important, and we all need to get involved in.
You know, I got about 20 other things here. I can't go into all of them, but there is some good news in the world. Harry and Meghan are going to have a little royal. That's good news. Viva amore.
Really?
And the other thing that I had to laugh about, there's always something kind of humorous. Senator Elizabeth Warren has gotten her DNA checked, and she does have American Indian blood in her somewhere down the line.
And I hear there's a bet hanging out there somewhere that needs to be paid, but we'll see about that.
I think it was for $1 million.
That's what I thought. But
have you ever had your DNA checked?
No, I have not, but I know people that have, and have had some very interesting results with it. So, have you?
Yes, I did. I thought I was a blue blood.
And then?
I have so many countries in me, I couldn't even believe it.
Yeah.
Italian, Greek, Scottish, British, Welsh, Iberian Peninsula, we might be related.
Yeah.
Western Europe, Western Asia.
Yeah. And you know, I think the best part about the DNA sampling and what we're finding, and with people getting their DNA tested and going back, I mean, actually it's kind of a nice segue in terms of, like, you know, a conclusion, if you will, of this conversation, is the fact that it really is a small world.
It's a very small world.
And we're all in this together, and the bottom line is we have one planet. You know, we have one obligation to each other, and that's to take care of each other. So how do we do that? And those are the list of the questions that you have. How do we take care of each other? That list. And so then again, we come back to our small part of the world in New Mexico. And I've always said that, you know, 2.1 million. New Mexico's a small town. We're not a small state. We're a small town. And we do what we can, and we take care of each other. And we always have, and we always will.
Yeah.
Do we have problems? Yes, we do. Do
Many.
we have issues that we can improve on? Absolutely. But we know what those are. We know what we need to improve on, and we know that there are ways that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can learn from others. We stand on the shoulders of people that came before us, and we can certainly learn how to make our state better. And it comes back to what we started off, and that is voting. And how do I vote? And who do I put into positions whom I will hold accountable? But when I vote for that person and I put them in a position, it's because I have done my homework. I believe in what he or she is saying, she or he, and that I know that they will be a leader to take us and improve, to make us better. And are we going to be perfect? Nobody's perfect, but hopefully we'll get better. But with all the questions, when we talk about education, we talk about environment, we talk about healthcare, we talk about gun control, we talk about all of immigration, I mean, your list. Right now, we are at a very good place in terms of timing, is that we have an election ahead of us, an important election in New Mexico, and we have to, bottom line is we have to get out and vote. We're not saying who to vote for, how to vote.
Absolutely not.
Saying be informed and find out what candidate is going to support the things that are the most important to you.
And I have something here. Anybody?
I'm everybody. You're anybody.
Oh, okay. Whatever.
No, we're all everybody and anybody.
This came out with the League of Women Voters.
League of Women Voters, yeah, great
It
organization.
Does great work.
Research.
And yes, and this whole thing is a voter's information guide, questions and answers asked to everybody that's running for office. There was one write-in.
Where do you get that? Was that in the paper?
It was in the newspaper,
Okay.
and it's got everything in it. It's got the two Republican are the only ones I'll mention. Michelle Lujan Grisham for Democrat, Steve Pierce for Republican, both congressmen
Running for governor.
and
absolutely.
congresswomen. So they should have more knowledge than normal people have.
Well, they
Or
should be knowledgeable, but then
Yes.
again, we need to go back. They also have voting records.
That's
and
right.
they have history, so we can find out where do they stand on the issues that are important to us, and where have they voted, and where have they put their time and their energy while they're in Washington. And then that can tell. That's not fake news. That's not anything anybody made up. It's not, the media trying to say something. These are real votes, and this is the way these are their positions. Where do they stand on the things that are important to you?
Now, you can get to the League of Women Voters on www.wvsfc.org, and you can get more information, or you can go to the county to get those yellow sheets.
The ballot.
The
Is that a
ballots.
ballot? Okay, so
They
we
have
can
them at
see.
the city too, I think. You would know that better
They
than I
probably
do.
do at the city clerk. They should. I mean, and that's one thing in terms of like making voting accessible and easy. Is I know we joke in New Mexico is like vote early and often, but maybe not that easy. But it should be easy and it should be accessible. And that's a challenge that I would have to everybody in watching the show, to you, to myself. Is how many people are we going to take to the polls on election day? To what service are we going to provide to help get people that have not voted or that want to vote that maybe don't have access to the polls? And when I talk about, our older people, people living with disabilities, we all count. Our votes count.
Yes.
And we should get to the polls.
So to vote, we must be registered and be a current resident of the county as of October 9th, 2018. Election day will be Tuesday, November 6th. If you can't find a voting place in this town, you're not looking, because they are everywhere.
Yeah.
At the county, at the city, at the
I
schools.
and they say you can vote so tell me, because I now live in the county. We can vote pretty much anywhere, or we need to go to
You
our
can
precinct.
vote anywhere.
Right.
Yes.
So you can vote anywhere.
And you cannot vote a straight ticket. Now they did take that
And
off.
that's okay too. I mean,
So everybody has to study.
you have to, do your homework, and that's fine. And if it were straight ticket, that's okay too. I mean, as long as we exercise our right, and like I said, I continually and am challenged by my mother to make sure that I give of my time, to give of my talents, and to give of my treasures. And I try to do all of those in community service. But the one thing that I'm not going to give away, because I know that, for women, we've only had the vote since 1920.
That's right.
Not even 100 years, almost. For people of color, it's been a struggle. People have struggled and fought, and we live in this country. We stand on people's shoulders that came before us and gave us the right to vote. I'm not going to give away my voice this year, and I
No.
don't think anybody should.
My dad was first generation immigrant. I'm not either.
Yeah, absolutely. People fought hard for us to have this right, and we should honor that.
So use your moral conscience, Santa Fe. Money, power, or morality? Party first or country first? Let your conscience be your guide. And I want to end this with a little golf story that I have. I have a lady that's from South Korea that plays golf with me out at the country club. And every time she gets up to hit the ball or tee off, she says, do the right thing. So I'm asking you, Santa Fe, do the right thing.
And vote.
And vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlene. Thank you for all those provocative questions.